Hey, welcome everyone to another Tech 90. I'm Daniel Hamrick, Director of Tech Support and Training. Here with me today, I've got James. James, you want to introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm James McIntyre. I'm the Senior Director of Commercial, and I run the commercial department. But I do get invited to these things from time to time. So here I am.
Well, we're glad you could join us today. And
Thank you.
also, we've got one of our tech support team members, JD McCarthy. JD, introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm JD. Thanks for joining us. I'm the one that when you call in, a lot of times I will be taking your call and working you through the problem, getting you resolved.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, glad you could take the time out and join us, JD. So today we'll be covering the new MultiPro 24 volt AC adapter and the wired controller. So first we'll cover why we're so excited about getting this info out to you. Then we'll run a hands-on video showing the new adapter, and then we'll come back and chat with you live and answer any questions up to that point. After that, we'll run another hands-on video covering the wire controller. And then we'll finish up with another live Q&A session. So please don't forget to click the question button and send us your questions so that we can, answer them together as a team. And we encourage you get in on the conversation. So use the question mark icon to the right of the screen and send them our way. So we'll answer any relevant questions that have to do with the subject that we're talking about today. And again, this is your opportunity to connect with us and become more comfortable with the latest in GREE comfort. So um, let's get started. First, James, can you give us a little bit of, you're in charge of the commercial team and the MultiPro product there. Can you give us a little, what's exciting about this new 24 volt adapter and the wire controller?
Oh, yeah. So, we've made some massive improvements to the 24 volt adapter. One of the problems that we had before was the control of emergency heat. When you've got a communicating system, you got a multi-zone system. Typically, um, you know, uh, with most manufacturers, the system will go down. Like, so if you lose an indoor unit, the entire system goes down, and that's just the way it is. So, it's that's the way a lot of the systems are. In our case, we're able to continue to operate those indoor units. So we wanted to add some features like being able to use emergency heat out of an air handler while still, controlling the wall mount units, for example. Or if we had, say we were using a standard multi-pro and it got very, very cold, and you're wanting to use some backup electric heat, you can turn on the electric heat for the air handler, and then take the remaining capacity that you have and force that to go to other wall mounts. But in addition to that, the emergency heating, we've added a dry mode contact. So if you detect high humidity with your thermostat, it would then bring that on at a much lower speed to get longer run times and better dehumidification, which I know that's a popular thing. Um, in addition to that is also just a better setup that goes with North American thermostats. Using a Y1, Y2, for example, to kind of give you more control over the blower speed. And on the controllers, we've made a whole lot more sense within the menu. We've Americanized that quite a bit. Using terminology that we're all accustomed to, bringing some things in the menu that you might find common as far as setups. You're no longer having to enter like a password or go to a secret menu or whatever. We bring that to the forefront for some of those configurations. Um, just a lot of options there, and just a better user interface overall on the wired controller. So,
All right.
yep.
Well, thanks, James. That's something that's always impressed me about the GREE factory is that, they welcome our feedback and they make adjustments. And this is actually one of the best updates that I've seen to a controller for one in a while, and then also the functions that you've been able to work out with them on the 24-volt adapter to make it, like you said, Americanized, and that way it's easy for us to install and set up and go through the controls on the controller. So, without further ado, let's run the video on the new MultiPro 24-volt AC adapter.
All right, so welcome to another Tech 90. Today we're going to talk about a new 24-volt adapter we have for MultiPro. We've had a 24-volt adapter, and have had it and still have it available to you. The hiccup to that one was you didn't have really good control of electric heat with an air handler. So with this new 24-volt adapter, it's going to give us better control of electric heat, and it's also going to give us a little simplified wiring. Before with the 24-volt adapter, when you got it was very simple. You used a standard heat-cool thermostat, not a heat pump thermostat. And then when you got a Y call, it would run the unit in cooling mode. And when you got a W call, it would run the unit in heat mode. So this is going to be a little different. This is going to be more to what most of you are probably used to. So you are going to use a heat pump thermostat. And with the heat pump thermostat, as you are well aware, has an OB terminal. Just keep in mind that most of those thermostats, the O and B is shared, and you have to set it up in the thermostat to whether you want it to energize the reversing valve in heating mode or cooling mode. With GREE's equipment, we always energize the reversing valve in heating mode, which is typically referred to as the B terminal. And on this new 24-volt adapter, you will have exactly that. You will have a B terminal. So, and then we'll also have some electric heat connections and stuff. So without further ado, that's where I'm going to start. I'm going to start by all the connections to it and kind of show you on the board where it all connects at. So let's start with that. So I think we can get a pretty good view. With the air handler, you are going to need a 24-volt thermostat. Even though there's a transformer in here, it's just going to be a lot easier for you if you just add a transformer, and that's going to be your power supply for 24 volts for the 24-volt adapter. And right here on this 24-volt adapter, you got a TC and a TR. So that is your transformer common and your transformer hot, which is the R. Okay. Then from there, going to your thermostat, you got a C terminal. And you have an R terminal. That's going to give you your power to your thermostat. You got an auxiliary terminal. You've got an E terminal. You have a dry terminal. We're going to talk about all of these as we get it functioning. You have your G terminal. You have a B terminal, which is your reversing valve. You have a Y terminal. And we have our G1, G2, and G3. So all of that I'll explain a little bit more in depth, okay? So your E terminal. So if you take your whatever thermostat it is you want to use with this, whatever heat pump thermostat you want to use, and you give it an emergency heat call. A lot of thermostats share the auxiliary along with the E terminal, so it may be the same terminal within your thermostat. Depends on the manufacturer. But the minute this thing gets 24 volts to E, it will bring on the electric heat. It doesn't even have to have a G call. The way the board's programmed in there, it'll automatically turn on the blower if you get an E heat call. It's not going to hurt if you get a G call as well, but it's not needed either. So the auxiliary is exactly that. When you get a Y call, the heat pump's running. For whatever reason, the heat pump is not keeping up, and you get the auxiliary heat call on top of it where we're running the heat pump and the electric heat, that's when auxiliary comes in. So that would be your W2 or auxiliary, depending on what kind of thermostat you have. When you get a signal to that, that will turn on the electric heat and the air handler. Your G call, so you can do a simple G call. From most thermostats only have a G. Most of them don't have G1, G2, G3. This gives you the ability for both, and I'll go in more depth of that. But if you use the G terminal, there's a P code on it you can set to determine what blower speed you want it to run at when it gets that G call. So you can actually select from low, medium, or high. If you have a thermostat that gives you the ability to have a G1, G2, and a G3, then that would be low, medium, high, respectively. Okay? So then you don't have to set the P code because it's going to be dependent on what thermostat signal you get, whether it's a G1 or G2 or a G3. Those thermostats are not real popular anymore. You don't see them a lot. So most of the thermostats you guys will be working with will just have a G terminal. And again, we can go in there and set that P code, and I'm going to explain that a little bit further. Remember, B is your reversing valve, and that's for heating mode. And in your Y connection, just like any other unit. So again, this 24-volt adapter is really built and designed to go with a GREE air handler, which is also going to give you better electric heat control. It's not really designed to go with a third-party air handler. So, and then the only other connections you're going to be making, it would be up here at the top, and I'm not going to worry about showing them to you. That's just going to be your H1 and H2. So basically what's going to happen is you hook up your thermostat and everything here. You take your H1, H2 wiring to your H1 and H2 on the air handler. So now this becomes your wired controller, but your thermostat's actually telling this what to do. This is telling the air handler what to do. So instead of using a GREE controller, you're using a GREE 24-volt adapter to transform that signal that you got from your thermostat to tell the air handler what to do. This gives you the ability to, if you want to use an Ecobee thermostat, a White Rogers thermostat, a Honeywell thermostat, even a Nest thermostat, whatever heat pump thermostat you want to use, this gives you the ability to tie that third-party thermostat into it. Again, like I said, we had a 24-volt adapter before. We still have it available, but that uses just a heat-cool thermostat, not a heat pump thermostat. I don't have the part number for you yet. It'll be coming out soon, and we will have an announcement about the new 24-volt adapter, what the part number will be, and that will be the new heat pump 24-volt adapter. So I have one all wired up here with my thermostat wires and everything in front of it. You guys really can't see the terminal designations. That's why I was using the other one to show you what the terminal designations were. Over here on the right-hand side, we have the red buttons. So that's where we get into P codes. And I don't expect you guys to remember all this. It'll be in the instruction manual that comes with the 24-volt adapter. So without further ado, we'll talk about P02 first, which is our fan speed settings. So if we're going to wire to G only, then you would set the P02. So if you hit enter, and then it'll come up P00. I went up one time to P02. I hit enter again. Now so 00, Daniel, help me out, is what again?
00 is auto.
Okay, and then 01 is?
Low speed.
Low speed. 2
is medium speed.
And 3
is high speed.
Okay, and we'll put it back the way it was. So now they got it blinking. That's what it's set to. I hit enter again. Now it saved it. Then I can hit the back key. It takes me back to the main screen. So again, now we're going to go with P03. So there's P00, P02, P03. Enter. And these are our off times. You got 00.
It's 00 is 5 minutes.
Okay, and 01?
01's 10 minutes.
02
is 30 minutes, and
okay,
03.
So that's what we changed though. So on the new production one, 00 is going to be 0 minutes. 01 is going to be 5 minutes. 02 is going to be 10 minutes, and 03 is going to be 20 minutes. So now, if electric heat comes on, something I noticed with this, if you get electric heat on, it's got its own blower off time that has nothing to do with this P code setting. The P03 is more like heat pump setting, how long it stays on after you lost the call, or heat pump cooling mode. So heating mode or cooling mode of the heat pump, you can set those delays and they'll actually run that thing anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes in your different settings. I would probably leave it at 00, but just so you know what those other settings are for. P10 Is that my next one? Yeah.
Correct.
So I'm just going over the key ones. We go P00, let's go to P10. I'll hit enter. That's 01 or 00. And help me out again here on P10. 00 is no change, okay.
Correct.
So what that means is, this is whether or not you want this controller to be the master indoor unit. So especially, let's say you've installed the MultiPro system, you've put the GREE wired controller on there, you've done all the startup, you did the debugging, everything's up and running, but it's running on a GREE wired controller. And let's say that GREE wired controller for that particular air handler was set at the master. Here's what could happen to you. You go in here and you install the 24-volt adapter. You don't set this to 01. 01 means at startup this would become the master. Let's say you don't set that. If you don't set it, then you're going to get an error code because you have no master indoor unit. You have to have a master indoor unit with a MultiPro system. So if that was the master, or if you want to change it to the master, you would set that P10 code. I'll go back to it just real quick here. You would set P10 to 01 if you want it to be the master, 00 if you don't want it to change. So if one of the other units is the master and you want it to remain as the master, you leave that P10 setting at 00. Again, you hit enter to save it after you get it, and then the back button takes you back to the main screen. So none of this is hard to set. Let's see, what else do we got? We got static pressure, that's P30. So just like the GREE controllers, you have a static pressure setting for your blower between 1 and 9. 9 meaning you're giving the blower more thump, more hump to be able to overcome higher static. And a lower setting is going to be less thump from the motor at a lower static. So the way I tell guys to do this is you should measure it, okay? Start out I believe the default is going to be static pressure setting of 5. So get the fan running on high speed. Once you get the fan running on high speed, measure your total static drop. If you're running like 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, then I would probably set that static pressure setting at like 6 or 7, and maybe even 8 if I'm running, like a 0.9 static. Now, if you still can't get that static to drop by increasing your static curve, then you probably need to loosen up your ductwork, filters, something else is giving you the high static across that air handler, and just cranking that up is not really helping you much. So let's say we get it on high speed and we measure the static and my total static's like 0.02 or 0.2, I mean. Then you probably don't want to be at the static pressure setting of 5. You need to slow the thing back a little bit. So maybe set it like 3. It's not going to be a direct correlation into if my total static is 0.5, I need setting 5. If my total static is 0.9, I need setting 9. That's not really what it means. It really means is that you're just giving the blower profile the ability to run at a higher RPM if you set the static curve higher, a lower RPM if you set the static curve lower. So that's really what it's about. But it still doesn't, it's not going to fix bad ductwork for you guys. So you got to have good ductwork so the airflow can move, okay? Got to use good filters too. Make sure, if you're wanting to have an air cleaner type filter, that's not done on a 1-inch filter. You need to be using like a 4-inch filter that's got plenty of media. Every filter out there has a static pressure drop rating across it, and using too thick of a filter, you're going to get too much static pressure drop across it, and it's going to cause you airflow problems. It can cause you airflow problems even with it's clean. So then once you get the filter dirty, now it's even going to be more of a problem. So keep all that in mind when you're setting these things up. All right, so enough about static pressure. We have another one in there that we
That's P43, priority.
P43 is a priority operation. So let me explain to you what that is. And you'll also see this in the GREE wired controllers. Priority operation means If we've got a power problem or the machine, let's say, don't have enough refrigerant in it, but it's barely squeaking by, you're saying that that particular indoor unit has priority operation over any indoor unit attached to that same condenser. You're giving that indoor unit basically the ability to run even if the other ones can't. If we can't keep them all running, we're going to say that this is the one I do want to be able to work, if it will still work. So that's what priority operation means. You want that unit to be the priority, which makes sense. So as far as the P codes go, I think that was all the major ones. Again, you guys are going to get a pamphlet in there. It'll tell you what the codes are. It's just you got to make sure you set it up, okay? Again, that P02, remember that was only if you're wiring the G. Then you can select what fan speed you wanted to run on, whether it's auto, low, medium, high. But if you're using G1, G2, and G3, then it would be, if you got a call from G1, it would be running the unit at low speed. G2 would be medium speed. G3 would be high speed. Don't think there's anything else as far as setup goes. Nope, that's it. So just kind of give you a little bit of operational here. I got my own homemade zebra stat here. So if we give this a fan on call, I'll turn on the fan. You can see the 24-volt adapter went to on. So we'll give that a second. So fan's up and running. Lose the fan call. And I set that to where, in this, again, this is a prototype. So those timer off settings are not correct in here. So I had to play with it. Even though, if you guys were paying attention, the what was the blower off?
PO2.
PO2. So it's actually set to 3, and that's no delay. And it's opposite of what I told you. With 0, 0, I believe is going to be no delay. So, but once we have the actually production unit, the instructions should match what it's actually doing. So anyway, so as I said before, if I give it an electric heat call, which I don't want to do just yet because I want to do a heat pump call first, I can't really simulate electric heat or auxiliary heat operation with this setup. Reason being is, as you can probably well see, I don't have any refrigerant pipes going to this, but I do have it hooked to a MultiPro unit. So I don't want to leave it running very long because it's not going to be too happy with me if I do that. But just to show you, so I gave it an OB call, so B should be energized. And we'll just verify that right quick. So I got the voltmeter going on here. Let me get on O and C. And I got 27 volts. Hopefully my arm's not in the way. A lot of guys get confused by that. What I mean by that is your reversing valve call does not cycle with each call for operation. Your reversing valve is energized off of the system switch. So when you put the unit to heat mode, not emergency heat, put it to heat mode, that reversing valve is energized. It stays energized whether the machine's actually running the heat pump heating mode or not. Even when it goes into defrost, it doesn't change what your thermostat is doing. It is just disengaging the reversing valve on the outdoor unit to run in cool mode, turn off the outdoor fans, and run in defrost. Okay? So, as you can see, I energized the reversing valve on this, and I have no operation because it's set up to run in heat pump heating mode. So now, if I give it a Y call and a G call, now it'll actually come on. And I'm not going to leave it on because that unit's coming on over there, and I don't have any refrigerant lines hooked up. So we're going to shut that right back off. Then shut our fan back off. We went back to off. So now it is going to have a little bit of a delay here. and the heat pump shut off, thank God, because I didn't want that on very long. All right, so now let me give it an emergency heat call. As I told you before, I don't have to have a fan call. I can just give it an emergency heat call. It went to on, blower's coming on, and in a minute here you will see the amp probe show that the electric heat's on. There it goes. So I just got a little 5 kW heater in here, and it's pulling like 18.6 amps. It's 208 voltage, so it absolutely functions. So now when I lose that heat call, I'm going to lose that electric heat call, but that blower's got a delay in it. Regardless of the delay, as you seen when I did the G call, I didn't have a blower off at all. But now that I gave electric heat call, it does give me a blower off. So it'll take a minute for it to shut down. Again, I really can't run it in heat pump heating mode long enough to get that auxiliary heat call, but it will function as giving you, like if you got the heat pump running and your thermostat would give you an auxiliary heat call, it will bring on the electric heat as well. So you got full electric heat control with this new 24-volt adapter. The wiring is simple because it's very similar to any unitary product you ever done with an OB terminal and a heat pump thermostat. So that was kind of the idea here, is to make it simpler for you guys out in the field and also give that homeowner the ability to use whatever thermostat they want to use. So I think you guys will like this. And again, I just use this because I'm not waiting on time delays during videos and stuff, so that's why I built this, so that I can show you guys a whole lot faster. But it's just simulating a thermostat. And this, pay no attention to this adapter hanging out of here. This is a lab prototype unit that we are playing all kinds of games with to make it work.
We had a lot of fun getting it working this morning.
Yeah, it's not a production unit, so we have to do what we have to do. Anyway, and again, like I said, I know there's a transformer in here. Where exactly you would be able to get off the board to tag that, they don't really give you that. So it's just, like I said, it's just a lot easier to add your own transformer. I would prefer you put it in a safer place than I did, just on top of the unit. But again, this is lab settings, so we're just doing what we got to do to make sure you guys understand the functionality of it. So, like I said, it's pretty easy to set up, and then you can use any thermostat you want. Just don't forget about, you have to have a master. Because I actually did that on my own unit in my house. First time I hooked up the prototype, I'm like, why am I getting this air code? Well, dummy me didn't think about the fact that the wired controller I disconnected was the master, and then when I hooked this up, I didn't have it set up to become the master, and then I got the air code for no master indoor unit. So all I had to do was go back in, reset that P code, and it became the master, and the problem went away, and I was able to run the whole thing, and it all worked just fine. So usually when you get an air code right off the bat like that, it's because we don't have something set. So I think, like I said, you'll get good instructions that will, because the 24-volt adapters, the prototypes that were sent to us, there was no manual that came with it. It was a prototype. So I was using the manual from the 24-volt adapter we currently sell, because the P codes and that kind of stuff are all kind of the same. But then we went back to GREE and said, hey, we want to change this, we want to change this, we want to do this, and it's all supposed to be that way now. So I think you guys will be really happy with this, because it gives us a little bit better operation than we had before as far as electric heat goes. So with that, we'll call that a wrap on the new 24-volt adapter. Again, no part number yet. There'll be an announcement coming out once we have them available, and submittal sheets and instructions and all that will be coming. So they're probably around October-ish, might push into November, not real sure yet. So, but we're real close, real close. So, all right, so there you have it with the new 24-volt adapter. So let's jump on over and see what kind of questions you guys have about the new 24-volt adapter.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the video. We wanted to give a little bit more detail about the dehumidification function on the 24-volt adapter. So if we can share the slide on that and talk about how that works. So James, that basically from the 24-volt adapter, we're just hooking that to the thermostat on the DH terminal, correct?
That's correct. Yeah. So what this will do when you have that energized, when the 24 volts detected on the dehumidification terminal, it will slow down the fan speed. It'll slow down the fan speed to basically medium fan speed, which is about 2/3 of what the high speed is. So again, it's important that we set our static pressure to match our ductwork so that we can dehumidify properly. But once it does that, the fan speed slows down. So it just effectively goes to dry mode like our mini splits do. It'll slow down the fan, runs at a colder coil temp, keeps it wet, keeps it draining, removes humidity, gets that longer run time that, folks in the Southeast or people along the coast, things like that people are looking for. This will give them that function.
Oh, that's great, because in the past that, you put the 24-volt adapter on it and you lose, a lot of those different mode functions that are, generally come with the product. So this is giving us back that dry mode that we took away in the past.
Right. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. So, with older 24-volt adapters, not like this one, but with older ones, your fan speed might just turn off like as soon as there's no call. You're also taking away some of the features and benefits that people want in these units. Maybe
Right.
the reason why you purchased it in the first place, is this maximum efficiency and all the rest of that, and you're kind of taking some of that out. I will say the HVAC nerd in me, is the more features that we have added to like the 24-volt adapter, the more we're making it like the wired controller that comes with it.
Right.
And I know the user interface maybe not, it's not it's not a round thermostat, it's not a little hockey puck or whatever, but yeah, the nerd in me goes, just a couple more steps and we're right back to where we start, from a features and benefits standpoint. But no, I do think this is going to be pretty popular.
Yeah, I think so too.
Judging by some of the questions that we have that came in through the Q&A so far, it seems like, there's a lot of interest in it.
Yeah, certainly. So, JD, what do we have for questions over there?
First one from Serge is a webinar from September 5th available, or why is it not available to rewatch? It is available on YouTube. I do know that. I'm not 100% sure if it is on our site yet.
Yeah, we'll double check and make sure that it's on the website on greecomfort.com under the videos. Yeah, actually it is there. So if you go to videos on greecomfort.com, you'll find it there, and it's also on the YouTube channel, Greek Comfort YouTube channel.
Cool. We had another one from Serge. He wanted us to provide our technical support phone number. So that is 888-850-7928. Again, 888-850-7928. Just when you call in, be sure to leave, your company name, phone number, reason for calling. And that way we'll get back to you. Model number, serial number. Just leave all the information that we asked for.
Excellent.
Does this course give you unique credit? Be the next one from Robert.
No, it does not.
No, it does not. Something maybe we can look into, but not at this time. Question from Sean is, when P02 is set to 00, does it use all the fan speeds in the algorithm? And when P2 is set, that is auto mode, so not 100%.
Yeah. So it is capable of speeding up and slowing down. It's also coupled with P03, which is a time delay for the 24-volt adapter itself. So from the factory, the current model is set up to continue to run for about 5 minutes after the fact. It will slow down the fan speed. It will slow down the system itself, providing less cooling capacity toward the end of that. So, I mean, in that case, it's not really based on like a set point, but it does continue to run, but at a lower capacity for that 5 minutes. So if you have P02 set up as auto and you do have P03 set up as 5 minutes, it will run an auto fan speed during that 5-minute run time. But effectively, instead of it coming on, the way the 24-volt adapter works currently, when you get a call, it comes on, it ramps up, and it's trying to get to temperature as soon as it can. But yeah, there definitely is an algorithm built into it. I mean, you're not going to get max cooling right out of the gate. It's not running like a standard speed system, where the compressor goes to 100%. It does slowly ramp up, and then it maintains. And once the set point is reached with the thermostat, then it will continue to run a little bit slower, and then slower, and then slower, and then finally shut back down.
Good question.
Yeah, good question. Next question here we have from Sean. He's wondering if this 24-volt adapter can be used with our ductless indoor units. We do have a different model that can be used with our mini split line for our ductless indoor units, but that is a different model number, part number.
This 24-volt adapter will work with all MultiPro indoor units, correct, James?
Yeah,
this particular one.
Yeah, so this model works with all MultiPro indoor units. But we do have another model that works with all mini split units, right?
Right.
Yeah, so we've got two different models. One's for for any indoor unit that starts with GMV, or anything that goes with MultiPro, and then the other one will go to like a Levo or Vario right.
Yep. I was just pulling up that part number too in case someone wanted that for just our standard mini split line for that 24-volt adapter. And that one is a part number of ME3342G, as in girl. ME3342G. That would be for our Vario and all our other, just not the MultiPro line.
Perfect. And James, I know that on the video, Greg was talking about we're not quite sure the part number yet and when the launch date is exactly. Do you have any further information on that?
Actually, yes, I may. Give me just a second here.
While we're waiting on James to see about that and see if he's got some new information for us. As far as the timeline goes, Sadesh put a question in there. I see, JD. If you wouldn't mind, Sadesh, go ahead and reach out to tech support at twclimate.com and give us the details. Would love to discuss that with you.
I think that's all the questions for now.
Yeah, so I do have an update. Okay, so the current model is an ME. Okay, I didn't pick these models. The current model is an ME3233H, and the new model will be an ME3223H.
Just to keep us a little confused.
Just a little bit. So it appears that it would be an older model, but it's in fact the newer model. And then the controller update, which is coming up. I mean, I can give that after the fact, but the current model is the XE7C24H, and the new one is going to be XE7C23H. So for some reason, we decided to go with older numbers.
It's later.
Okay.
In a correction, I did give the wrong part number earlier. The part number I gave for the 24-volt adapter earlier was for the U-match. The other one for our standard mini split line, like the Vario, is an ME3444G. Just for correction there.
So ME3444G.
Yep.
All right. Yes,
so,
and they are not compatible, by the way.
No, they're not interchangeable. That U-match one only worked with the older U-match line that is now discontinued, and then that new one that JD just brought up is for all the mini splits. So keep in mind, if you order the wrong one, if you order the mini split one and you've got a MultiPro, it's not going to work. So
That is
yell
correct.
yell at the sales guy.
Yeah, I mean, doesn't the mini split one have a plug that you're plugging into the unit?
It does.
Yeah,
Yep.
so instead of H1, H2, it has a plug-in that you're going to plug where you would plug a wall controller for, say, a Levo high wall. So it comes with an adapter because it can be used on several different models of the mini split as well, just like the MultiPro, and can be used on the air handler, the cassette, the ducted unit. So. All right. So looks like we're out of questions. Keep them coming. Really, really happy for the involvement. And so now we will, I think we're ready to run the wire controller video.
We have a new GREE controller that I want to talk about for the MultiPro systems, whether it be the standard or the MultiPro Ultra. With the development of this new controller, unfortunately, what I don't have for you yet is the part number that it's going to be. That should be coming out shortly. We'll be having an announcement about this new GREE controller. But the advantage to this controller, what we were after here is getting better control of electric heat. With this new controller, you'll be able to do that. You will now have your heat function, just like you did before with the other GREE controllers with the MultiPro heat pump, but you're also going to have an emergency heat function, and you're also going to have auxiliary heat function. So I'd like to talk a little bit about that first, because it seems like there's a lot of confusion in the industry between what emergency heat is and what auxiliary heat is. Emergency heat is exactly that, and meaning if the heat pump is dysfunctional for whatever reason, whether it's a MultiPro heat pump or any other heat pump, if that thing's out on air code, can't defrost properly, whatever the case may be, the emergency heat function gives us the ability to set it to emergency heat, or GREE likes to call it E-heat function. By putting it in E-heat function, then the heat pump no longer functions until that gets serviced and repaired and fixed. The E-heat function gives them the ability to still have heat in the house, running just the electric heat until the serviceman gets there to fix it. Auxiliary heat is exactly that. It's auxiliary to the heat pump. So for auxiliary heat to work properly, the way that works is heat pump is heating. That's your first stage of operation. It's heating the home. Let's say it gets cold enough out there, which we all know with the MultiPro Ultra, it's got to get very cold before the heat pump's not keeping up. But even so, let's say you're up in our northern climates and we get to some really sub-zero temperatures and wind chills and everything else, and the heat pump slips a little bit and it can't keep up anymore. The auxiliary heat function, exactly that. It will automatically bring on the electric heat and help the heat pump out. With this controller, we have the ability to set it up in two different ways. You can get it to set it up to where it will finish the heat call with the auxiliary heat. Once the auxiliary heat calls for, it will finish the call. In other words, it will not shut off the electric heat until the thermostat is completely satisfied. Or you can set it up to where it does not satisfy the thermostat completely. So in other words, basically the first stage or the second stage gets satisfied, electric heat drops off, heat pump stays on. Let's say the temperature drops a little bit again, then the auxiliary heat comes back on, and then that part of it gets satisfied, goes back to running the heat pump, and it can just keep cycling like that, keeping that heat pump running the entire time, somewhat maintaining the temperature with a little help. Okay? Like I said, you have the option set up either way. You can make it just satisfy the thermostat and shut the whole system down, or you can set it up to where auxiliary heat only cycles in when it needs to. Now, in order for this controller to work, it has to have electric heat in it already. The controller is automatically going to detect whether or not it has electric heat in it. But there is some setup options too that we need to be aware of. So we'll jump right into that. We'll go through some of these setup options. So again, like I said, I don't know if I said it or not, but just so you know, this was a prototype. That's why I don't have a part number for you, but the setup's going to be fairly the same, but you will get a manual if for some reason I tell you to go to parameter settings instead of project parameter or something like that. The new controller will have the proper instructions to get you into the right menu to get to the settings I'm talking about. So anyway, without further ado, let's get into that. So we go to menu, hit it one time. You can use the right or left arrow keys, go to set. We'll go here. And you'll have your typical settings that you have with the GREE wired controller. And then the parameter settings. So this is set up as master wired controller, master indoor unit, use remote, which means you can set this thing up where you can still use the remote along with the wired controller, or you can say, no, I don't want the remote to be able to function. Prior operation, I wouldn't worry about that so much. High ceiling installation is not really going to apply to an air handler. Link to fresh air, that's only for a fresh air kit. So a lot of these menu stuff that I'm telling you here, I can tell you we've already changed the whole menu structure because we've changed it so that you're only getting to the ones that really mean something to you, to us in the States. There's a lot of options in these controllers and we don't necessarily use them all. So, and really as far as those parameter settings go, I'm not going to get into all that with this Tech 90 because we've kind of already covered that in other segments, you know, as far as other settings to the controllers. We didn't really change any of that. We just might have changed the location on the menu. I'm primarily getting to the electric heat part of it. Let me get there. Auxiliary heat available or not, yes or no. Like I said, if you got electric heat, that's going to automatically populate yes. If for some reason it don't, it should at least give you that and you can set it. Space temperature differential. So it's kind of a weird setting for you. And if you notice I'm going up and down with the arrow buttons, that's because these things time out rather quickly and you're going to lose your page. So if you don't want to lose your page and you're trying to focus on something, just keep hitting up and down or left and right and it'll keep you there until you're ready to move on. So anyway, what that differential is, that's basically your differential between your first and second stage. So right now I've got it set to 1, and you can go between 1 and 10. So basically you can have this set up to where you've got a 1 degree differential between the heat pump running. If we slip another degree, then it's going to bring on the electric heat. If it don't slip that degree, it's not going to bring on the auxiliary heat. As we go down a little further, auxiliary heat on timer, 0 minutes, you can set that from 0 to 60. Meaning you could actually set this up that say you got an older person like me, because I am getting old, right? And we inherently like to go to the thermostat and say, I'm cold, and we turn the temperature way up. Well, they're kind of defeating the purpose of having a heat pump, especially if it's 40 degrees outside. So what you can do with that timer is set it to 10 minutes. You can go 0 to 60. So let's say you set it at 15 minutes. So even though it called for auxiliary heat because we got a 1 degree differential because it was 60 degrees in the house, we set it at 70. We gave it a 10 degree differential. It's not going to bring on the electric heat for at least 15 minutes. It's got to elapse that timer before the auxiliary heat kicks in. That's what that means. Or you can just have it as simply as 0 minutes, and every time you're within 1 degree of your set point, if you're above that, you're going to, or below that I should say, then you're going to bring on the electric heat. We also have the satisfy room temperature with auxiliary heat. Again, I already kind of talked about that. You can set this to yes or no. Just remember when you change the setting, after you change it, once I set it to yes, I have to hit menu. And then if you see, I'll go back to it, it still says yes. If I go to no, and then I save it, and then I go away from it and go back to it, it should still say no, and it does. Okay, so you got to save it after you set it, just so you know. So there's your 3 settings you got to set. That's all there is to it. And then we can go back to the main screen. Now, the controller doesn't come set up for eHeat function, and they should have it set up for you, or I'm sorry, not set up for you, but in the installation instructions. So if you have electric heat available, again, only on an air handler, when you first power it up, before you even turn it on, you hold the menu and power for at least 5 seconds, and it'll say setting is done. That means you now have the eHeat function, or eHeat mode, I should say. It doesn't come out of the box with eHeat mode. You have to enable eHeat mode. So now let me turn it on. So you can see I got eHeat mode. So now I can crank this up, and I should be able to get my electric heat to come on. There it goes. In a minute here, I should see amp draw. There we go. So about 19 amps. We're on 208, so it's going to be 18, 19 amps. Then if I run my temperature down, I should be able to get it to cycle off. And it also says, right up here at the top, it says aux on, aux off, or not aux off, it just says aux on. So whenever the electric heat's running, whether it's eHeat or auxiliary heat, it will tell you the aux is on. I'll show you that one more time. Let me turn it back on. So the other thing that we gained while we're waiting on that for a minute, the other thing we gained with this, and I've tested this myself, even if I lose power to my outdoor unit, which normally would give you a communication error code, and you lose all function of the GREE MultiPro unit. You will lose all function to the GREE MultiPro unit. But as long as that blower motor can still work and the board is still good, you will still have eHeat function. Again, it might be because I cycled it so quick. It's probably got a delay in it. But we'll give it a minute, see if it don't kick back in here. And then I also want to demonstrate that it'll work with the power off. I'll just kill the power to the outdoor unit. What I can't demonstrate for you, or I'm not going to demonstrate for you in this video, is the auxiliary heat function. Because then you got to have the heat pump running, and then the temperature's got to be within a degree or whatever, however the differential we set, and bring on the electric heat as well. The only reason why I'm not doing that, as you can well see here, I don't have this thing refrigerantly piped up yet. So once we get an air handler set up in here and a couple other indoor units, we're going to do have a fully functional system where I can run the heat pump and then be able to bring on the electric heat. I will have all that where I can demonstrate it. It does work, I know that, because I got it on my own system at home. So meanwhile, while I'm waiting on that, I'm going to kill the breaker. So as you can see, I just turned the power off to that MultiPro unit this is hooked to. I'm still functional in the heat mode. So then also to kind of recap a little bit too. So if you don't have electric heat in the air handler, you cannot, the controller will not recognize that it has electric heat. It will not let you say it has electric heat. And you cannot enable the eHeat mode. So you'll have a heat mode and eHeat mode. Heat mode would be heat pump, temperature differential. Once you meet your temperature differential and your timer, if you set a timer on there, then the auxiliary heat will come on with the heat pump. And then the other mode you have is eHeat mode. If for some reason you're out on air code or anything like that, You can go to your mode settings, change it to E-heat, set the temperature, and you're good to go. There we go. She's on. As I said, it shows auxiliary on. So I didn't time that, but I would say it's probably close to 5 minutes. Now I didn't time it, it's got to be at least 5 minutes off, because as you've seen when I first did it, electric heat came on right away. But once you cycle it off, it cycles back on, it's going to have a 5-minute delay. So now I'll run this back down. We should be able to lose our auxiliary heat call. So we lost it. We also lost the amp draw. So whatever the blower time delay off is, which I'm not even sure how long that is, it did slow down a little bit, and then that'll cycle off. So again, look for the announcements coming out. I'm hoping October, somewhere in October, hopefully before November, we will have these new controls available, and we'll have an announcement about that coming out real soon. So again, I don't have the part number yet or the model number of the controller. Again, these are prototypes. But we were able to get the prototype, make sure it all worked, and GREE did an absolute fabulous job of making these controllers work the way we wanted them to control the electric heat, to make it very much like any other heat pump that I've ever dealt with in my entire career. They've always had an emergency heat function. They've always had an auxiliary heat function. And even if that heat pump was out on air code, it shouldn't be affecting my electric heat capabilities of my indoor unit. And with this new control, we will have that. So there was a little bit of hesitation with some buyers that not having the electric heat function, and if the heat pump should go down, they don't have that backup feature that they were used to. So there was some hesitation to buying the MultiPro equipment because of that. So with this, that's going to resolve that issue. And then even if that heat pump goes out on an air code, you still got electric heat until you can get somebody out there. Now I will say, our downtimes to the MultiPro units have not been bad. Normally when they're down, a guy can get out there and get it back up and running fairly quickly. But I can also understand the concern from consumers out there that live up in the northern states especially, that are, it's not uncommon for them to have minus 31-degree wind chills, and having that backup peace of mind is huge. So we realized that, and with GREE, giving GREE a little help, they realized it and were able to come up with the controls we needed to just make it a better product. That's the whole thing here, and I think you guys are going to be happy with it because you're going to get some excellent inverter heat pump operation out of the MultiPro unit, but you're not losing anything that you had from previous heat pumps you've ever dealt with. You will still have full electric heat capability. Now, again, if a blower motor goes down or the board goes out, well, that's any heat pump. You can't run electric heat without blower function. So you're still going to need parts for that. You can't, But the outdoor unit, I agree with everybody's out there. That shouldn't have anything to do with whether or not I can bring that thing on electric heat. So with that, we'll move right on into questions and see if we can answer any questions you guys might have about the new wire controller. Just don't ask the question of what the part number is or the model number is yet, because I don't know yet. As quick as we get that information, it will be announced, and there will be a broadcast put out to all distribution as to what the new controller and its capabilities. So, with that, let's get to questions.
All right, welcome back. So if you haven't already used the Q&A button, go ahead and enter your questions in there. We're happy to keep this open for a while and make sure that we answer as many as possible before we close it out. Hopefully you're impressed as I am with the new MultiPro GREE controller, with the setup and especially that e-heat mode. That's pretty cool. I found that a lot of fun. So JD, do we have any questions?
Yeah, we have one question so far from Sadesh. He is asking, does the thermostat have or controller have a dehumidifier mode? And
Yes,
to
it
answer
does.
his question, yes, it does have a dry mode, which is essentially taking the place of dehum.
Right. So that's that built-in mode that actually sets the fan speed, locks the fan speed in low speed, and like James was describing, it removes more humidity. It's not a dehumidifier. Let's just talk about that for a second. It's not designed. It's an air conditioner. It's a heat pump. So it's not an actual dehumidifier. It's not made to take the place of a dehumidifier if you have a humidity problem. However, it will remove more humidity than normal, just simply because of the process of how air conditioning works and setting that fan speed to low. So
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and see if we can bring up a psychrometric chart. I'm just kidding. We're not going to do that. But yeah, no, you're changing your sensible heat, your sensible heat ratio. You're increasing the amount of latent heat removal that you're going to have. And just as a reminder, on dry mode, we do have a set point for dry mode. It's a temperature set point for dry mode, and what it's trying to do is not exceed that set point. So if it's running dry mode and it gets a little too cold, it'll stop running. It'll stop running dry mode. Okay. If you still feel like it's a little too humid, you can bump that down. But it's a game to play, right, between being cold and being humid. If dry mode still can't get can't dehumidify enough, then yeah, you might need a dehumidifier. Or, let's say you didn't install it, and you went to a job and they were complaining about it being high humidity. Right? We talk about this fairly often on Talking Comfort Live as well. If dry mode is still cooling the entire space and it's overcooling, let's say, it's likely to be too large. It's too much capacity for the space that it's in. Yeah, so when people say, well, I was told you can't oversize an inverter system, I'm like, they mean that you can't. That means that you can't do that. Not that you not able to oversize it. No, you're completely able to oversize it. But and we get those calls from time to time, right, Daniel?
yeah, we do. We have them occasionally. And the thing with it is you're really doing yourself a disfavor if you're going by that phrase, an inverter can't be oversized.
Yeah.
I like how you put that, James. It's that we can't oversize it, because then the customer's not comfortable. Yeah, you must not.
Yeah.
If the customer's not comfortable, it just causes a lot of problems, and not to mention all of the things that come along with oversized, short cycling, and affecting the equipment and the space. And so,
well, speaking of short cycling, a bit of and also please hit that question mark icon and answer or ask the questions that you would like answered. But we don't sell one size. We don't sell like a 5-ton and just call it good. We do sell multiple capacities. But I mean, yeah, to your point, they do dehumidify better than regular systems, because regular systems can't slow down. They're not going to be able to do much of anything at all. They'll still have their compressor running at 100%, and then fine, you slow down your fan motor. Compressor's still running at 100%. Not really a money saver at that point.
right, you've taken away the ability to be efficient.
Yeah, pretty much. Your efficiency's actually dropped significantly at that point. You're still trying to provide 3 tons, let's say, but you're not delivering 3 tons. It's going somewhere. Sometimes it's your accumulator. Right? Now, I did here's a story time. I did a class here recently And yeah, I still do those, even though I got my slick back hairstyle and my white button up and all that, right? But I was in a class not too long ago, and I asked, what we use to determine the proper size of a piece of equipment, and they had a lot of younger folks in there, some people out of vocational school and stuff, and they start listing off, like how many windows it's got in it, what kind of insulation they've got, and what's the design temperature outside. I mean, yes, all of those things are used, but there's one answer there, and it's a total heat load or heat loss calculation, right? You take all of those things into account, and that's all it is, right? So whatever square foot per ton, if that's worked for you for the past how many ever years, then I mean, I can't make you do anything. But with the advent of spray foam and people wanting to use triple pane windows and all that kind of stuff, those rules of thumb have come under criticism, more so.
Yeah, well, the rule of thumb from the 1980s, like you said, with a lot more efficient housing with spray foam and everything sealed as best as possible. I've seen a lot of builds where they'll go through and seal all the holes where the electrical goes through, the top plate or the bottom plate and things like that, so there's no infiltration.
Right.
And then, yeah, you've completely thrown off that rule of thumb that may have worked for, throughout the 90s.
Yeah, and the thing is, I mean, houses were built better. I mean, I don't think anybody's questioning that. Houses were built better, but maybe they were insulated worse.
Yeah, yeah.
But I know of my folks have a 100-year-old house, right? I mean, the wood in it, oh my goodness, I mean, you would use that for hardwood floors now,
Right.
you got to reuse the old nails to get the nails back in that piece of wood, stuff like that, a nail gun just ain't working, but they just didn't have any insulation in the walls and stuff like that. But they were also, they might be doing 200,000 BTU fireplace or, like coal, for example,
right.
was what that was originally designed for. So, when you had, I don't know, 1,500 degrees, 2,000 degrees or whatever sitting in your living room, you might not have had to worry about insulation that much, It
was comfortable.
Yeah, but we're not doing, we don't heat that way anymore. Speaking of which, looks like you got a question there in relation to high efficiency homes. The question says, what effects? Yeah, what effects does foam have on the coil?
Oh,
yeah, what effect does
on the coil
have on the coil? Right,
don't put it on there.
Well, I don't think they're talking about putting spray foam on the coil. But,
sorry.
Yeah, don't spray the coil with spray foam. Thanks, Daniel. No, this would, I would believe, be referencing like the VOCs, the off-gassing.
Yeah.
Spray foams. Well, let me go ahead and include other things that also off-gas. Is almost all new construction materials have some level of off-gassing.
Flooring.
Formaldehyde.
Anything. Yeah.
All
anything to build a house with.
Even the paint on the walls.
Yeah, paint on the walls, all the rest of that. In fact, what is it? Proposition, what's the California warning? 65?
65, yeah.
Yeah. Almost all of those things have Proposition 65 stickers because of that. So it's not just spray foam; it's also engineered beams.
Mm-hmm. Laminate of any kind. Yeah.
OSB woods. Flat pack furniture that us guys are constantly forced to build.
Do you read the instructions on those?
I do, actually. I preach reading the manual enough that I go ahead and read everyone else's manuals too.
Good.
Yeah.
You'll save yourself a lot of time.
Yeah. No. So as far as that goes, releasing those chemicals into the environment, in some cases they can have a corrosive effect on coils. They can have a corrosive effect on many, many things. Now, some of you may recall years ago a certain country's sheetrock or drop wall or wallboard or whatever you want to call it was responsible for a lot of off-gassing, where it was corroding the electrical,
Yeah.
like the screws on the on your outlets and stuff like that was corroding, and that all that was just an excess amount of the off-gassing that normally occurs with drywall or sheetrock or whatever the non-branded name is. I don't know what that is, but
I have no idea.
yeah. So just to be clear, I'm not talking about a specific brand of wallboard, but no. So it can, it can have a corrosive effect. But what I will say on it seems that spray foam has gotten a lot better over the years. A lot of the horror stories that came out about spray foam were improper mixing of the two materials that are used for spray foam. So it caused an excess amount of off-gassing because there's nowhere else for it to go. There's nothing for it to react with. I actually just got spray foam in my attic and in my subfloor about a week ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and to remind everyone, I have a MultiPro system in my house, so I'm not concerned about that at all. Don't see much in the way of off-gassing. I know, like I said, 10, 15 years ago, maybe that was something, but maybe at the same time, we don't know if the systems were properly sized, if they were using a rule of thumb and you just had this constant wet coil that just maintained wet in very short run periods and stuff like that, that may have contributed to it. There's a lot of things that can. Which actually brings up, a fair amount of, okay, so like fresh air, right? Or, outdoor air introduction, that kind of thing. I've seen, in some cases there have been codes that have been enforced for bringing in fresh air for new construction, for newly built homes. The funny thing is, the reason why they do that is, one, the houses are tight, sure, right? And they say it's for the health of the occupants of the spaces, but it's also an attempt to dilute the amount of off-gassing that occurs from new construction materials.
Exactly.
We're attempting to exhaust that and dilute that with the introduction of fresh air. So the reason why we're doing it is because houses are tight, but because houses are tight with this excess amount of off-gassing that we have from all these materials, we're now bringing in the fresh air. So it's not just like to give you oxygen to make you feel better. It is to reduce the off-gassing that occurs over years in some cases.
Yeah, to provide some ventilation for that, to get it out of the house.
Right. So, what I've always kind of thought was funny, from a filtration standpoint, I know there's a lot of fancy filters and UV lights and all kinds of stuff that we've got out there. I experienced the same thing in my own house. We want to clean that air, get it the highest IAQ possible, and then the occupants want to light candles and light, turn on diffusers, diffusing whatever they might have bought for $5 at their favorite online retail store. They're going out of their way to go ahead and reintroduce whatever it is that they're breathing in.
Add some more into the space.
Right. I know that contractors have laughed in the past about a customer wanting to add in all this stuff, and they also smoke cigarettes in their house. It's like, what are we doing there? But
well, we're cleaning the air.
Yeah, well, I guess that's cleaner than it would be if it didn't have it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we got any more questions, JD?
Yes, we do. Question from Arif. What sort of government incentives are available out there with the MultiPro heat pumps?
Okay, I'll answer that. Now, these systems do qualify under the IRA, the federal program, like the tax, not rebate, but the what's it called? Like, the tax incentive, like it's a there's a certain amount that you can write off for these energy upgrades. Can't remember the term. You'd think I would. But where the most significant ones are offered are in certain locations, like certain cities, certain utility providers. Quite a few offer them. No longer are we talking about $500 here and there. In certain cases, the they can be substantial. You know, I know of at least a couple locations where there, you know, many thousands of dollars being offered.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is insane. You know, I live in Texas. There's not much, you know, as far as local rebates are concerned. But they do qualify. I mean, depending on your utility provider, you can get something, right? But you know, because they are high efficiency systems, they absolutely will qualify. Some areas have promoted the use of cold climate heat pumps. So on the MultiPro systems, if you select an ultra heat, then they'll qualify. You know, I can't speak to what rebates available in every place, but we do have a rebate finder on our
On the
website.
website. Yeah.
How do I go about finding that, Mr. Hamrick?
Well, you go on the website,
Okay, well, that's the first
greatcomfort.com.
thing. Yeah.
And if you go to the tab at the top, I believe it's the tab that says contractors. And
Okay.
under that drop down, I don't know if they have it under both sections there, but under one of those drop downs, it'll say rebate. And you can type in the model number and your zip code, and it'll bring up what's available in your area.
Yeah, okay. So under homeowners and contractors, there's a
There you go.
rebates tab that has a nice big green button next to it that says save money or save dollar sign. So you can check it out there, and you can put in your zip code and find out what rebates or incentives may be offered in your area. You know, sometimes it's rebates, sometimes it's tax incentives, sometimes it's, you know, whatever they do, you know.
Yep. We have one more question from Arif. Do we have a BMS compatibility with our thermostats? If yes, what features are available for integration?
I'm going to read that one more time. BMS with our thermostats. If yes, features available for integration. Okay. So with the controllers themselves, no. We do not have BMS compatibility out of the box with the wired controllers. So what we use instead is our products that are from Cool Automation. We have those if you want to add a single mini split to a backnet, you know, to a backnet BMS, you know, or backnet based building management system. And so from a single unit all the way up to 255 indoor units, just depending on, you know, what you've got for the job. We also have options for being able to control things outside of the GREE product lineup. So if you wanted to control like a couple package units that are on the roof already, we can use backnet thermostats to bring those in. That will communicate via RS-485 with our Cool Automation controls. There's just a lot of options there. There really are. But to answer, just to repeat, the wired controller itself doesn't have a BMS interface on it.
Yeah. So with the Cool Automation, you can, if you have a MultiPro on a job site plus a Flex plus a single zone mini split, there's a possibility of kind of integrating all those products using Cool Automation products.
Absolutely. And one of the things I really like about the Cool Automation products is that it already has a really great user interface that's built in. So if your job, you know, if you have some input on that job, if your job is wanting to use VMS and almost only or just completely only for the HVAC equipment that's on the job, you can buy a Cool Automation controller. You've got the user interface built in and all that, and you no longer have to have somebody to come in and build a user interface and integrate that and all the rest of that. You know, if you're wanting to do a bunch of energy monitoring, lighting, drapes, curtains, all kinds of other things, then there could be a case to be made for a full-on building automation system. But if you're just talking about bringing on and off a, you know, like a boiler or an exhaust fan or something like that, you know, we can do that for significantly less cost than what it would take one of the big controls companies coming out and doing.
Right.
Now you're talking tens of thousands of dollars of savings in that case.
Yeah. Good product. So.
Well, we did have one comment. I believe this was related to some comments that Greg made in the video. He said, careful what you say about old people. We're sensitive, and you'll be there one day. I wish Greg was here so that he could hear somebody refer to him as not old. I mean, he's not an old guy, but we tease him a little bit every now and then. So that's nice. I appreciate that. I'll let him know not to talk about the old folks, but I'm pretty sure he's saying that meaning that he is one.
Yeah, I was there when that recording was taking place. He was certainly was.
Right. And despite our beautiful good looks, we are not that young. I can promise you that we're not that young. Our
JD's 26, man. What are you talking about?
I wish.
JD's older than I am, but
I know.
I mean, I just look significantly older than JD, so that's so good for you, buddy.
Thanks.
Well, looks like that wraps up the questions.
Yep.
So, anything else you wanted to touch on there, James or JD?
I think we covered everything pretty good.
All right. Well,
the rebate, the federal rebate is also known as 25C.
Okay, cool. All right. So, well, thank you everyone for participating in today's broadcast. If you had to step away for a bit, or you had a call and had to go on a job, if you'd like to go back and revisit any of the training from today, we'll have it posted on our YouTube channel, along with the Q&A at GREE Comfort, and you'll also be able to find it on our website. So join us next time for our next Tech 90. That's going to be October 24th at 11 a.m. On the new MultiPro dual fuel coils and wire controller. So we'll talk about the wire controller again, but we'll talk about it with the dual fuel coils and the controls on those. And as a reminder, our next Talking Comfort Live, as always, will air on the first Wednesday of the month. And James is our host for the Talking Comfort Live. So be sure not to miss that. And be sure to continue to refer to the training calendar page on greecomfort.com, as we'll update upcoming trainings as they're scheduled for the fall. And always remember, at GREE, we're by your side.